And the first order of business today, we're going to be considering House Bill 717, and I will turn to Council Smith for a summarization of the legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill prohibits individuals under the age of 21 from purchasing, possessing, or transporting semi-automatic rifles or shotguns with specific characteristics. There are 5 amendments, Chairman.
Thank you, Council. And the first amendment we will consider today is A04805, and if Council could summarize that amendment.
This amendment will remove all of the current language of the bill and replace it with language providing for constitutional carry of a firearm. The language of this amendment is almost identical to language passed by the General Assembly as Senate Bill 565, sponsored by Senator Dush, and by this committee as House Bill 659, which was sponsored by Representative Bernstein.
Thank you. And a motion to adopt A04805 by Representative Klunk, seconded by Representative Rigby. Questions and comments on the amendment? Representative Kincaid.
This is, again, just a complete and flagrant abdication of our responsibility. We have passed this bill we passed the language in this amendment once, and then it passed through the Senate and again through this committee, and it was vetoed. This is not what we're supposed to be taking up. We should be talking about actually addressing whether or not 18 to 20-year-olds should have assault weapons, and I think as recent events indicate, the answer to that is no. But we're instead doing permitless concealed carry again. This is ridiculous.
Thank you. Representative Hohenstein.
If I'm not mistaken, what we're doing right now is taking a bill that would have, if we had it in Pennsylvania and the shooting in Texas recently had been here, would have kept those weapons out of that troubled young man's hands. And instead we're going to do something where we are putting a supposed individual right to have a concealed weapon just out there into the ether. So instead of going one direction to provide appropriate regulation of the collective right to bear arms, we are going to buy into the myth of an individual, inviolate, unfettered right to bear arms. That makes no sense, because if we don't appropriately regulate this collective right to bear arms, and if we say instead there is an unfettered individual right, then we will have basically gone back 150 years into the Wild West. There's no connection here to the greater good, public safety. We can say all we want about how guns will make certain people safer. They also make a whole lot of other people less safe. And having guns available to even people in law enforcement did and will do nothing. A ban like this, that should be what we actually talk about and should be what we're passing, would take guns and legal guns that are purchased, and many of these shootings that we're seeing are happening with legal guns being purchased. It's not just criminals, and it's not criminals getting guns. It's legal purchases of firearms that are turning into the mass shootings that we see. So we would take those away, just like we take away alcohol, and just like we have age limitations on a whole bunch of other of our rights or of things in our society. We would take them away from the young people who we know now, because we know better than we did back in the Wild West, that the late teenage, early 20s brains of people lack full development of impulse control. And if we can say, look, slow your roll. Don't go buying that AR-15. Don't go buying that gun, regardless of what you're going to call it, assault gun, whatever. We're talking about gun to kill a lot of people all at once. And we just don't need those in our society writ large. And we certainly don't need them in the hands of teenagers who have no impulse control. And instead, we're talking about the myth of the individual right that is unfettered to bear arms. And that's not the way the Second Amendment reads. That's not the laws that we should be passing. And I'm with my colleague here. This is more than a disappointment. We are failing to do our jobs, and we're actually doing harm if we pass this bill.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Schusterman.
Thank you, Chairman. Maybe we need to look at this differently. We need to discuss this bill because we have a responsibility to keep our communities safe. We have a responsibility to make sure our young adults don't become criminals of a violent massacre or of violence. I work very closely with my police chiefs, and they are begging, I know I mentioned this last time, they are begging that these types of weapons are kept out of the hands of consumers, to be frank. But I think they would be very happy to see that we made a compromise and we're keeping them out of the hands of young adults who might, sometimes make questionable choices. And these choices are choices that can change their lives and the lives of the people that they're harming and killing forever. So why don't we work together instead of inserting different amendments? Why don't we work together for a compromise? I would love to hear from my colleagues across the aisle of what they don't like about this bill and how we can reach compromise. It's different when you go ahead and you gut a bill and you change the bill's intent. We should not be doing that. We should be working together for a compromise for our police, for our young adults, and for our community.
Thank you. Representative Briggs.
Thank you, Chairman. This isn't the way to legislate. We shouldn't have to be having to do discharge resolutions on bills that are 70, 80% popular among our citizens across the Commonwealth, and they are going to save lives. Last week we tried to do an assault weapon ban, complete ban. This week we're trying to tailor it to 18 to 21-year-olds. That the science supports is the right approach. But when we can't have a conversation or a true understanding legislative process of what we should be doing, a hearing to discuss these concepts, we're never going to make any kind of progress. I understand the majority party will never advance responsible gun violence prevention legislation out of this committee. It's a shame. It's a shame that we can't even have a conversation about it to see what kind of package of bills, package of concepts could get advanced. But we will continue to fight to try to have those opportunities in the committee and on the floor through whatever procedural tool we can. It's a shame because every day we don't do it, it's putting Pennsylvanians at risk. So this is just another tactic not to deal with the underlying issue of gun violence across Pennsylvania, to gut and replace. This is a vote against limiting assault weapons to under 21-year-olds. I guess some of you will be very proud to cast that vote, but I will be against this amendment, and I guess we'll have to see what the next step is. But we will continue to be using whatever tool to try to address gun violence prevention. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
purpose does the gentleman resident of Schweyer seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to call up Discharge Resolution number 5.
Question is, will the House adopt the discharge resolution? For the information of the members, the content of this debate should be constrained to the reasons for or against discharge and not the underlying merits of the individual bill. So I recognize the gentleman representative Schweyer on the discharge resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll try my best. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to call up Discharge Resolution 5, which will bring House Bill 717 as amended in committee to the floor for a vote. Now, for the benefit of the members who do not serve on the House Judiciary Committee, House Bill 717 originally was drafted to raise the legal age to own an assault rifle from 18 to 21. However, as you know, Mr. Speaker, today in the House Judiciary Committee, it was amended. It was not amended with a few tweaks to try to improve language or make a concession, but by scrapping the entire bill and replacing it with legislation that would eliminate the already required background checks for someone to have a concealed carry license. I believe we considered similar legislation earlier this year. Despite the fact that the bill was amended in committee, as was mentioned before, I still want to vote on House Bill 717 by this full, and I'd like another vote on it by the full body, which is why I'm executing or calling up Discharge Resolution 5. And for the benefit of all members, not to recap any further what happened in committee, I have drafted and will file an amendment to restore the original intent of this bill, raising the legal age to possess a military-style assault weapon, with the hopes that we could have a debate on the floor, we could have a conversation about the original intent of the bill, and not, frankly, hide behind a parliamentary movement to try to silence our opportunity, our voices, and our chance to have a conversation about who should legally own an assault rifle in the first place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Speaker recognizes the majority leader on discharge resolution number 5.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Respectful of the gentleman's interest in bringing up this discharge resolution, but as you know, the committee was working on the bill today, apparently amended a little bit from what the dialogue was going on there. We have a process in where we try our very best to have bills amended in their entirety to what needs to be done before they come out of committee, and I would ask the members to honor that process and vote no to the discharge resolution 5. Thank you.
Chair thanks, Leader. I apologize, Representative Stevens. I did not see you seeking recognition.
I have a parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
You may state your parliamentary inquiry.
The bill as it's currently drafted includes language that had previously been considered by the House concerning constitutional carry of firearms, and that's it, and it's silent currently. I did support the underlying bill and opposed the amendment in committee. So if we were to vote to discharge the bill, we are voting to discharge the bill as it's currently drafted with the constitutional carry language in it. Is that right?
That is correct.
And just the constitutional carry language.
That is correct.
Does this body have the ability to rule on the constitutionality as it relates to a change from the original purpose of the bill in committee?
That is a question that is solely the purview of the body and that can be utilized at that time, but it would not be appropriate as we're just currently debating the discharge resolution number 5.
Got it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Members will proceed to vote.